day.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, driving through New York City trying to get on a Zoom call was not fun. They're not in executive session, are they?
No, they are logged in, but they are not on video yet.
Okay.
Never mind, I'll come down. I was gonna get a glass of milk in my Yeti tumbler. If you bring it to the bottom of the stairs, I'll come get it.
All right, we all good to go? Yep. Is there a connection over there? One of these gizmos, Alexander? Way down there.
There's, things are there.
Go down.
What do you, huh?
That
If you want to charge, you can go into my port.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Over there.
But I'll
I have
go
a
to the
USB, the regular one.
The other side.
Yeah. That doesn't, that's.
It's on.
Is it long enough? Okay.
Okay. Is everybody ready? We good to go? No, you can do that. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger, Chair of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, and the special meeting of the commission being conducted in Shelton City Hall and via Zoom is hereby called to order at 6:07 p.m. This meeting is also being carried live on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I'll start off with a roll call. Please verbally indicate you're present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Cristiano?
Present.
Commissioner Motto? Here. Commissioner Tiki?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Opel?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner McGee?
Present.
Commissioner Parkins?
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger, Ms. Castro, our Assistant Administrator. Present. Attorney Francis Teodoso, our Corporation Counsel. Mr. Dominic DeGangi, our Professional Engineer.
Present.
Ms. Sarah Vernassos, our Recording Secretary.
Present.
Was Ms. Charbonneau asked?
Yes.
Okay. Ron Baya, our ZEO.
Present.
Ms. Stephanie Charbonneau, our stenographer.
Present.
And couple points before continuing with this evening's agenda. Ms. Castro will act as the Zoom meeting host. While commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, I ask that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized before speaking to make sure we're not all speaking over each other, to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. First item on the agenda is a report from Planning and Zoning staff regarding Wells Hollow Brook debris removal, soil stabilization, and an erosion control plan that had been submitted by James McManus of JMM Wetland Consulting Services as required due to the cease and desist order that had been issued for application 2420. Dominic Thomas for Crown Point 2 LLC at 0 Bridgeport Avenue and 48 Longville Crossroads, Assessors Map 50, lots 15 and 16. And I'll call on Ms. Castro, our Assistant P&Z Administrator, to start.
So I will recap how we started, how we got here, and where we are now, and then I'll call on our zoning enforcement officer to go over the proposed plans. Activity on the site began in the early summer of 2024. While our office received numerous concern calls, our initial site visits confirmed that at the time, the work was limited to clearing debris, large stones, and a deteriorating stone wall. In mid-July, the developer began cutting trees without prior approval. Our office responded immediately, halting the work and requesting a soil and erosion control application for a certificate of compliance, along with a detailed plan indicating the areas where tree removal was proposed. Per Section 32 of the Planning and Zoning Regulations, a COC is required for activities involving more than 200 cubic yards of material. At that time, the developer met with Alex Rossetti and Ron Baia, who approved a limited 20 to 30 foot wide strip of tree clearing. A bond of $200,000 was required and a soil and erosion control plan was implemented. Despite this, the developer proceeded to cut down more trees than approved and did so rapidly. Our office began monitoring the site daily or every other day to ensure no stumps or earth materials were removed. Activities not covered under the tree cutting approval and which would have required a separate submission and approval. According to deep regulations, any disturbance over 5 acres requires a construction stormwater general permit. As of today, DEEP has confirmed that no such permit exists for this site. Without a permit, DEEP cannot take enforcement action and instead relies on the local municipality for oversight. Through the winter months, the zoning enforcement officer continued monitoring the site to confirm no removal of earth materials. The site remained stable and well-maintained with silt fences and hay bales preventing runoff even during major rainstorms. On February 11, 2025, the WPCA reviewed an application to relocate the sewer line. The commission authorized the issuance of a permit and hiring of engineers to ensure plan compliance. However, no permit has been issued to begin that work. On April 10, 2025, the Inland Wetlands Commission reviewed and approved plans related to pending planning and zoning application. While this approval is necessary, it does not grant permission to commence site work. A COC or final site development plan approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission is still required. The Wetlands Commission also stipulated that any modifications made by Planning and Zoning must be returned for further wetlands review.
Alexandra, excuse me. Can I stop you for a minute? That previous paragraph that starts on February 11th. The WPCA reviewed an application to relocate the sewer line. And then you said the Planning and Zoning Commission? Or it's the Inland Wetlands Commission?
That would be.
The Inland Wetlands Commission reviewed and approved plans related to a pending planning and zoning application.
So there was some action by the commission on February 11th or that we authorized the
The
issuance.
WPCA Commission reviewed the
Yeah,
application.
you're referring to WPCA.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The Wetlands Commission also stipulated that any modifications made by planning and zoning must be returned for further wetlands review.
Mhm.
Around May 8th, our office received reports and independently confirmed that additional trees were cut and stumps and earth material were removed. This included not just the developer's property, but areas along Bridgeport Avenue within Wells Hollow Brook and on land currently owned by the state of Connecticut. When contacted, the developer claimed he was only working inside the silt fence and on land he believed he had acquired from the state. On Friday, May 9th, we instructed the developer to stop all work until a coordinated discussion among involved departments could take place. He agreed. However, we later discovered that the work continued over the weekend into Monday. On Tuesday, May 13th, a cease and desist order to stop work and a stop work notice were issued and posted on the site. That same day, a meeting was held with the developer, his attorney, project manager, and wetlands consultant, along with representatives from WPCA, zoning, inland wetlands, planning and zoning commissions, and the city attorney. It was unanimously agreed that no further activity would take place on the site. During that meeting, the developer stated he believed approvals from WPCA and inland wetlands allowed him to begin site work. He also mistakenly assumed that submitting a deposit to the state of Connecticut for land acquisition constituted ownership. Both assumptions were incorrect. The developer has since acknowledged these errors, issued an apology, and expressed a willingness to comply fully with all local and state requirements moving forward. All involved parties now have a shared understanding of what has and what has not been approved. We will continue to coordinate closely moving forward. At the meeting, the developer's wetlands consultant requested an approval to stabilize the site and clear materials from the brook. We requested a formal plan outlining the proposed remediation activity. That request has since been submitted, and our zoning enforcement officer will review the details along with the staff comments and recommendations.
Okay.
Gave those to you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Castro before we move on? Anybody participating remotely have any questions for Ms. Castro? Okay, Mr. Baya?
Yeah, so last we met, we talked about a soil and erosion control plan from the wetland consultant of the applicant, and we have 7 items that are listed on this page. Several of you have the copy. The applicant requested to install additional soil and erosion controls as needed within the Wells Hollow Brook area. There was no objection from staff or to the engineer, including Mr. DeGange, who reviewed this as well this morning. The second item is stump removal. Staff had no objection to that as well. The third item is debris removal, which removed tree stumps and any recently cut wood. Nothing old materials, no old materials to be removed, nothing that was there for years, several years that would cause any disruption in the brook. We had no objection to that as well. The corduroy removal, carefully removed corduroy road material from the stream. That was the staff response from the engineer. He did not agree with that. He did not want any additional work within the stream without the appropriate regulatory bodies weighing in. So, and must submit a map showing the material that will be removed and what will remain. The soil stabilization plan, we had no objection to that as well, along with ryegrass and seed as needed. Ongoing maintenance and erosion controls, allowed to continue maintenance and repair of any silt fence on site, and fortify anything going forward. We had no problem with that. And the last item on the back was basically submit a detailed map identifying all the recent tree cutting to be removed from the Wells Hollow Brook. All pre-existing debris that is to remain, and all work will be supervised by staff, soil scientist or engineer, or a combination of all of the above.
I comment on one of them.
Let me just ask first, any commissioners have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the,
Yeah, I do.
okay, Commissioner Kelly, you need that microphone.
Thank you. So what happens now?
I can.
Are there any repercussions or, you know, all right, he cut down all the trees, bad boy. Didn't get a permit. Now he can get a permit and go on his happy little way.
Not necessarily. I mean, what we're looking for, if you follow this page, I'll follow through. We're looking for a deep stormwater permit, a sewer permit for WPCA for the work that needs to be involved there. Any equipment that currently is on site to be removed. And COC and site plan
Yeah,
approvals.
but that would be normal if he was developing the property anyhow. Now, if he had, why didn't he have a permit for the sewer? He's working on that.
I have no.
Huh? Okay, because they don't issue. They gave it approval. For the Okay. work, and they had site meetings with Fuss and O'Neill. Constant. I mean, well, you know,
They had,
go ahead.
You're good.
they had site meetings, just to let you know, before this happened, because I was involved with
briefly involved with the negotiation with the Fuss and O'Neill contract, because this developer has to pay the Fuss and O'Neill supervision as is required by them. So once it was approved and everything like that, they had the meeting on the site. And that was my last direct involvement, where they were revising the agreement that the developer had signed with Fuss and O'Neill, and they arrived at whatever else they needed to do under the approval. They don't issue, to my understanding,
Piece of paper?
Piece of paper permit. They required a pre-construction meeting. The pre-construction meeting was held. Fuss and O'Neill was present. The contractor had to be present. Everybody was present. And that's what commenced the sewer work, which was outside of the boundary of the
Oh.
PDD, with the understanding that there was going to be storage within the boundary. And I was going to be addressing that with this commission. So that is the WPCA thing. So they did have the appropriate procedures with that.
All right, but my point is that there's a couple of developers right here. If they went, they cleared the land, they put up a building, and the city would come and say, oh, you don't have a permit. And she'd say, oh, I'm a bad boy. So they go get a permit. But there's nothing to say what happens now. You know, do the trees have to be reinstated?
From our perspective, and I would hope we can move forward with this. I'm not trying to excuse it. The next step, and I've already had discussions with the soil scientist, is for him to revise the stream corridor enhancement plan.
And what would
In
that
my
be?
conversations with him, and this is just conversations, and
Right,
he cautioned it by saying he would have to do more thorough investigation. Somewhere
Either
in
do
the
it-
neighborhood of 50% of the trees, maybe a little bit more that were cut down, would have come down in the stream corridor rehabilitation plan because they were undercut. There were trees that needed to stay up in there.
Correct.
So now he's got to go back into that area
and
and take his plan, which had low level, I think Commissioner Maddow pointed out, the low level plantings in addition, riparian plantings and everything. He's got to go back, identify those areas and come back with a revised plan. That original plan was the one approved by in the wetlands application,
okay.
which, as correctly stated, that is not.
Well, someone mentioned with deep, if there wasn't a permit, they had no action. They had no authority if there's no,
Because there's no issuance of a permit from deep, they can't act on any enforcement for any violations.
well, if you don't get a building permit, they can go and arrest you.
This is a little different, the deep permit, when you're gonna open up 5 acres or more, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
You've got to get a stormwater permit from deep. So the cutting, and I had conversation personally back, and I don't want to, back in the fall, in the late summer and fall, I was involved in the tree issue, and my opinion that I gave and said was, outside of the upland review area, any property owner has the right to cut down his trees. Period.
Yes.
That outside the upland review area, there's no permission, there's no permit. Some cities have clear cutting rules. Shelton does not have a clear cutting rule. So we had that discussion. I instructed my client to have the upland review area marked on the in the property so that he knew not to go beyond it. That was my involvement with that. And that was the issue cutting the trees. I then based on a
Does that
complaint.
include the brook?
No,
No.
the
No,
brook,
it doesn't.
the brook would be in the
It's-
wetlands. The brook is a regulated area. The
It
brook
is.
is a regulated
Yeah,
area.
it's in your
And
wetland,
in
right?
addition to the brook being the regulated area, you had a 75-foot upland review area.
Okay,
Okay,
so regulated by
wetlands.
wetlands,
Wetlands.
inland
The-
wetland here.
The deep isn't even involved
Okay.
at this point yet. So somebody raised the issue of deep. I immediately, it happened so. The individual who answered the phone on the other end of deep was someone that I was involved with in a solar farm case that I was involved in. And so I knew him. I was talking to him. I said, did my client screw up cutting down the trees? He said, no, he cannot. I told him the size of the property. He cannot stump. If he stumps, that's considered a disturbance.
That's,
So-
that's on his property, not on the state's property.
On his property, we're not, the state's property is all in the regulated area.
Okay,
All of it's in the
Right,
regulated
and
area.
I think
Both-
that's,
both
that's
sides.
the conversation of the issue, right?
right.
When you talk about preparing the sewer line, you talk about this, in the upland area, right? You talk about the storage of the material. The issue isn't just the storage of the material. It was the applicant's decision to stump the entire property.
Well, that.
So the storage of the material wouldn't be on top of stumps.
Right.
The storage of,
He stumped the entire property so
Right.
he could then store material and it wouldn't be on top of stumps.
Right. But-
Right? So you're oversimplifying
well,
what
I'm not
he,
sure,
you're oversimplifying, my point is you're oversimplifying what the applicant did. He could have stored the material on his property. Okay, and that would have not have been such an issue.
okay.
The issue is he stumped the entire property, which he wasn't allowed to do, correct?
No, okay, let me
He
be
can.
clear. I am not talking about anything that was done in the regulated area. Nothing could be done in the regulated
Right, he
area. I
can
want to be
stump-
clear about
he
it.
can
I am not
stump
saying that it could be.
The
okay?
property he
All I'm
owns.
trying to say is, outside of the regulated area, my client, and my understanding was that whether it was confusion or not, that he began the sewer work, that's when the engineer needed to go for the stormwater permit for that upper area. Because you were gonna clear 5 acres up there to build the sewer line. That, I can clarify and I will clarify whether he did get it. I was told that they were under the understanding that he had made, it's not a difficult permit application. And I was told that today, that that the application had been made today, but I'm not sure, or was in the process today. I'll consent to that. That was incorrect. Outside of the area. In addition, and I'm not aware, looking at the map and looking what I was given, it does not appear he stockpiled anything in the upland review area, because he's not allowed to do that either at this point, okay, in the upland review area. Now, the upland review area, you have to understand, it's not a straight line on this property. It's like this as it goes along in the 75 feet, and it's my understanding it's been marked. I'm not challenging any of those things. And the only other thing I wanted to mention about this, and I certainly will talk to Mr. McManus and have him contact Rimis, is in the corduroy removal. Why they call it a corduroy, I have no idea, but it's apparently logs being laid in the stream. Because it looks like, okay, because it looks like corduroy, there you go. And I got
What'd
the
you think?
impression from talking to Mr. McManus, the soil scientist, that he wanted that done quickly, to take him back out.
Yeah, they were put in there for equipment to ride on.
Yeah,
and not
right,
damage the
exactly.
wetlands.
He wanted that, but I wanted it taken out quickly. So I'll contact Rimis and with Jim to first thing tomorrow. That was the only thing in here that I thought that. The fact is that I will double check that the stormwater permit was filed. The stormwater permit is normally filed as soon as you get your approval, and frankly, it should have been filed at the time, in my opinion, at the time of the meeting, the construction meeting with WPCA and Fuss and O'Neill. You know, the supervising engineers, it probably should have been filed at that point, because at that point they knew.
Okay, I have one more question. Today, tonight, tomorrow, we're supposed to get a northeaster. We're supposed to get 1 to 2 inches of rain. What precautions is he planning on doing for the erosion of all the material that he has stockpiled?
I don't know, I think.
I mean, well, it's kind of late. I mean, you know,
Well,
the
no,
horse
no.
is out.
Okay, understand this, the soil erosion sediment control measures were at that meeting that we had, and Mr. McManus confirmed that they were in good shape, that there were, what is it, hay bales?
We have silt fence, hay bales behind it. I don't know if I'm that worried about the nor'easter, and I understand your concern, and I'm a weather bug, so it concerns me too as well. But the site, even when it was in a different
condition.
It handled 6 or 7 inch storm from
Well,
last year.
that's
which was-
true, but we had trees.
We had, yeah, no, correct. But I'm confident that what is there, hopefully will be adequate enough to handle what is coming tonight into tomorrow. If I can finish, if you don't.
Sure, go right ahead.
So as of today, just want to say, we verified there is no stormwater or deep permit with the state of Connecticut at this point. We did talk to WPCA. We met this morning. Ms. Castro, Mr. DeGange, Rims, our city engineer, myself, and Bill Ionati. There's no sewer permit that was pulled yet. They did get approval, but just like wetlands gave approval, doesn't mean they had a permit to go forward. Basically, they need to have, and what they've done on the site was premature. I mean, I think we could all agree that what they've done was going ahead of the commit, but basically they needed P&Z approval. The bottom line is we need a final site plan and an approval from planning and zoning to start construction.
Take a seat, please.
And they went ahead, and that's pretty clear that we went ahead. I mean, it's evident. That's why we're where we are right now. Anything else going forward, I mean, they need to have plans in place and then to get approval from planning and zoning. That's where we are right now. I mean.
Yeah, no, it just appears that, yeah, he did a lot without permission. Now he's gonna go back and get permission, but it's all done. And he's just gonna get a slap, oh, I'm a bad boy, and he's gonna keep on going. I mean, it's not his first rodeo. He has developed. He knows the system. He knows what has to be done. I'm sorry, I just think we're seeing or not really taking this into consideration.
I think you as a commission, I mean, you have the final say.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly can. I mean, you have the right to bring the gavel down at some point.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, yes, he got ahead of himself. He got farther down the road than he should have. We as an office, an agency for the city, stopped him. I wish it was sooner. There were a few things that got in the way of, and I'm a little frustrated of it myself because there were some personal issues that I was going through that I wasn't here when I should have been. And that was my fault.
No, I don't think any of our frustration is directed
No,
at you.
but I'm
or
frustrated.
You.
I'm frustrated because there were some things that might have been able to be nipped in the bud and they weren't.
Well,
And that's just, I'm hard on myself. I've been that way my whole life.
well, makes for.
I'm conscientious,
work,
so I
right?
try to
So,
be.
Yeah. But I think I'll just say what I think I'm hearing from you, and that is there needs to be some consequence. Or
Right,
we feel that
exactly.
way. We feel there should be some consequence. And it's more like, that old easier to get. Yeah. Forgiveness and permission
I'm not,
thing.
I'm not prepared or to go into, just been a lot of conversations behind the scenes. I will just say 2 things. Number one, I'm glad to talk to WPCA. They're totally wrong about issuing the permit. They issued an approval and they had a construction meeting on the site. So they need to explain that. I want to be clear, he was not violating anything by doing that work.
Yeah,
To
no,
my
it was
knowledge, he was
violated
not
by
violating
the
anything
other
by
work
doing
that
the
he did.
WPCA work.
Right.
And it was reviewed and it was told it was okay to do it. So I want to get that clear on the road. On the other hand, I understand the feelings of the commission. And certainly not in a public forum. I'd be glad to have a discussion and have spoken to Attorney Tito about a meeting to discuss what impact has been on the developer just within the last week. And by impact, I don't mean just the public thing of it, I mean financial impact. So what has happened, and I'm not trying to say it's anybody else's fault other than his, there has been a financial impact. And my focus is to address the issues, address the concerns, get things straightened out, come back with a revised plan, and then try to move forward. Because I think in the end, if we're concerned about the property, if what is being proposed, especially in the area of the wetlands and the brook, is done, then it's an enhancement to the environment in the area.
Would have been great to leave the native trees that were there.
Some of them,
You know?
as I said
That
to you
would've-
before, in the plan, some of them were planned to have been left.
Yeah, but that doesn't make an excuse.
I know, it's not.
They cut the trees down and it makes it look
Right,
beautiful.
and,
No,
you
look,
know, and-
it looks like a stripped mine. That's what it looks like at this point.
So
Attorney,
I'd like to
go
add
ahead.
a couple of things. So the JMM proposal is basically about the wetland. Okay, he doesn't really address what is beyond the wetland. And I believe that needs to be addressed. And the really only way to address it is for the DEP permit to be filed. And to watch what DEP is going to say about what the condition of the site is in. There is this manual, which is the soil and erosion and sediment control. You can't get past page 5 without, it requires staging and scheduling. You're not supposed to take the topsoil off the entire site, right? You're not supposed to go to work someplace and then go someplace else to store the material. There are a whole bunch of issues now that need to be addressed. The piles that are stored on the property. It's in Alex's memo about you need to get the permit because you're not following what's in the manual. And you need to follow what's in the manual. Right? And more than likely, when DEP gets the application and takes a look at what's out there, it's a whole kind of different thing that's going to occur. There are things that need to be done to protect that property for however long it stays shut. The manual says if it's between a month and 12 months of a shutdown, there are things that need to be done to protect the soil erosion. So something like that's going to need to be done soon.
does your client intend to take out that deep permit?
I told you, I was told, number one, I was told that the conversations with the engineer either yesterday or the day before, it was being filed. That's what the representation was made. No doubt that it had to be filed. I want to be clear again, it did not have to be filed last year, and I'm saying that because I called deep. It did not have to be filed for the cutting of trees. Once the stumping started, and there was the approval for the sewer, that's when it should have been filed. And then the sewer construction work to commence, that's when it needed to be filed.
If I could add one thing, as of 3:00 this afternoon, Christopher Jones from state of Connecticut, DEP verified that there's no permit and not even a pending permit,
So there's no paperwork up?
nothing,
Yeah.
zero.
So I would just like to say this, thank you, Mr. Angie, for that information. There seems to be a lot of moving parts on this piece at this time, okay? I don't think it's our staff's responsibility to manage this. I am in favor of moving this project along at some point, but to do that, we need someone who's going to be coming in here and telling us what the plan is. There has to be there's a big problem here, okay, that needs to be corralled and laid out in a clear and organized plan for the whole site.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't my place to go through this book and decide what each individual thing need to be done to make the place environmentally secure.
Correct, and that's
Their
what I
person
think we
has to do
need to
that.
make, whatever decision we're gonna be asked to make at some point in time. But the longer that takes, whoever's responsible to make that presentation to us is gonna just delay this process.
I've already had a plan drawn up.
Thank you.
Immediately after our meeting on last Tuesday, I had a plan drawn up along with the conversations with Mr. Ihab. And Attorney Theodosia can tell you that I requested a meeting with the mayor, with whomever, with anybody to see what the next steps are.
Thank you.
Okay? And so there needs to be a plan. whatever that is, whatever supervisory engineering, whatever you want to do, we just need to sit down and have a conversation. In my opinion, not at a planning and zoning meeting.
I appreciate that. and I
Okay,
agree.
yeah, I agree with that.
Go ahead, Attorney Tedioso.
Purpose of this meeting is it's a follow-up to the last meeting that we had, to get the remedial action plan, if you will, that has been presented, approved so that the stopgap can be allowed with regard to the group that's on the property to make sure that there's no erosion, make sure there's no problems with this storm that's coming.
Mhm.
The purpose of this meeting is not to resolve the entire plan going forward. I think the applicant understands that until some kind of adequate, appropriate, and acceptable plan is proposed, they're not going to do anything.
Mhm.
So cease and desist is thing.
Still in effect.
Yeah.
Still in effect.
Anything that we would ask be done would be an exception to the cease and desist.
Right, and that is effectively what this little, I'm
Mhm.
gonna call it a minor proposal is doing.
Mhm.
You don't want the logs removed. They suggested the logs would be removed. They won't be removed.
Mhm.
Um,
So,
And I will have our experts talk to your experts about, I'm just repeating what he said about the importance of getting that corduroy out. So I'm not gonna tell them to do it. I'm just gonna tell them, we have to have a conversation with Dominic and Dominic, he's not gonna have a conversation with me, that Dominic and Remus on that one issue. All the rest are fine.
yeah, there are 6 items that came in from the soil scientists,
Yes.
your consultant, staff. Numerous staff members looked it over and there were certain things that they agreed to. There's a couple that were not. And so that's what it's in front of us, Attorney Tedioso, as to, for us to get a consensus as to whether or not that it's suitable enough for them to move forward.
Yes.
All right, is there some kind of motion that?
Well, we're waiting on,
We'll-
Before you say that, you're gonna tell them about the soil scientist? It's in your thing.
we're waiting
Yeah.
on also a map. It's a request in here.
Yeah.
We have
Conditioned
to
on.
reject it.
Yeah, we haven't received the map, that's one. Two, we have, I've been in contact with the soil scientist that will monitor the site once we approve the actual plan
Mhm.
and will monitor it to make sure it's carried out. I will also, as staff of the city, be there to monitor the site as well, as much as possible. If not daily, I don't think it's gonna take that long,
Mhm.
but make sure that this is carried out.
Attorney Attorney Thomas, is your soil scientist working on this map?
I was handling this tonight.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's
so I
not
was
a
gonna-
matter.
Can I suggest that we set up
will.
another meeting like we had on Tuesday?
We will,
As quickly as possible to try to address these issues.
we will.
rather
Today is
than-
Wednesday and I will check schedules. Okay, and then you've reached out to locate an engineer?
A soil scientist,
Mhm.
yes,
Okay, but you haven't gotten any feedback yet?
I have.
Oh, you have?
I'm gonna email him the plan.
Okay.
And he'll look it over.
That's this, okay, all right. All right, so we will, staff will be in touch about
The
that.
cease and desist is still in effect.
Right.
So no activity is going to be taking place
Mhm.
unless you authorize some activity. Is there anything in this document that is necessary to continue with this storm,
We're waiting for the plan.
with this storm approach?
No.
None of these 6
I
things.
beg to differ.
It's too late.
The discussion was if there was a breach, my clients will go in and immediately repair the soil erosion sediment control.
Correct.
That was previously discussed.
Right, it was discussed at the meeting on Tuesday. That was agreed that that would be done regardless. At that point, we hadn't gotten the nor'easter plan, but in anticipation of it, that's what the client will do.
All right, then I would recommend that we, look, there's no action that we can take right now. So we will just, ask staff to reach out and check everybody's schedules. You know who all the appropriate persons are.
Yeah.
And with that. Any questions for any of the staff members from any of the commissioners, either here or participating remotely? Okay. All right. So unless there is any further, we will move on to our next agenda item.
Black bullshit.
Okay. All right, next agenda item is an executive session to discuss a pending legal matter for 2 Mohawk Drive. Is there a motion to go into an executive session, inviting Attorney Teodoso, Mr. DeGangi, and Ms. Castro to attend?
I'll make that motion.
Motion
Second.
from Commissioner Cristiano, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. And on the motion, Commissioner Parkins? Move on, Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Parkins. We've got it. Commissioner Amato, Commissioner Cristiano,
All right.
Commissioner Tiki.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion is passed to go into executive session by vote of 6-0 at 6:45 PM. We're
Yes.
going.
Yes, it's the rest are there.
Mission.
It was here the last meeting. You ready? Okay. All right, everyone, we're gonna come out of executive session and at 6, no, it's not 7, no, 7:42, 7:37 PM. And is there a motion to come out of the executive session with the notation that no votes were taken?
Commissioner Christian, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, so there's a motion
Commissioner
from
Kelly.
Commissioner Cristiano and second from Commissioner Kelly. On that motion, Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. All right,
Back for this one.
Are you set? You turn it
I'm
on this?
trying to.
All right, we're gonna move on to, our next agenda item right now. And we have the continuation of 3 public hearings on the agenda this evening. And I'd like to share the protocol we'll be following. Ms. Castro will indicate if any written comments were received from members of the public no later than
My fault.
24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting. If written comments were received, they will be read into the record. The applicant and our associates will make the presentation. The commission can ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant and our associates can answer commission questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the presentation. At the point in each public hearing when the chair asks for public comment, we will begin with elected officials of the city who may be present in the auditorium, followed by elected officials participating via Zoom or through a phone link. After elected officials conclude their comments, members of the public will be recognized, starting with those present in the auditorium, followed by those participating remotely via Zoom or through a phone link. Those in the auditorium will need to list their name on the sign-up sheet. Those participating via Zoom will be identified after using Zoom's raise your hand feature, and those on the phone will be recognized after dialing *9. After you're recognized, please state and spell your name and state your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when doing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. Each speaker has 5 minutes to present comments, which should address specific criteria of the zoning regs, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments presented by a previous speaker. Comments and questions should be directed to the commission, not to the applicant and or associates. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. The applicant's attorney and or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. If a public hearing remains open, the commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. Commission feels the applicant and our associates have answered all questions and have addressed all concerns from the commission and our public. The public hearing will close. Commission reserves the right to discuss the application at the close of the public hearing or to schedule a discussion at an upcoming commission meeting. At either time, the commission will be asked by the chair on how it wants to proceed. The Corporation Council confirmed when we opened the public hearing on this particular agenda item that we could have one public hearing for the 3 items as long as each was identified separately at the beginning and that separate votes would be taken at the point when the commission was ready to vote on each one. So this is the continuation of the public hearing for 3 related items. Application 2505, Dominic Thomas for David Chukta at 0 Constitution Boulevard and 0 Bassett Street. Assessors map 91, lot 85, map 78, lot 123, and map 93, lot 1 for a zone change from R1 and R2 to R3. Application 2506, Dominic Thomas for David Chukta for a text amendment do section 35, table 1 of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Regulations, and application 2507, Dominic Thomas for David Chukta at 0 Constitution Boulevard and 0 Wybosset Street, assessors map 92, lots 65 and 85, map 78, lot 123, and map 93, lot 1, for an application for a special exception to allow 20 cluster single-family homes under Schedule A, use line 1D, design residential district. These applications were accepted for review on April 9th, 2025, and the public hearing opened on April 23rd. An additional item was posted to the city's website for application 2505, and it's a site plan indicating in color the layout of the proposed development, the existing city open space, and the proposed open space to be dedicated by the applicant. And actually, I believe that was also a document that would be for application 2507.
Filed in both.
Okay, and then 3 pieces of correspondence from the public have been posted to the city's website for application 2506. 3 additional items proposed to the city's website for application 2507 include the original April 23rd letter from Mr. Ganji containing the results of his review of the preliminary site plans, which was, and that letter was updated on May 8th with additional comments from Mr. DeGangi. There was a site plan indicating in color the layout of the proposed development, city open space, and the proposed open space to be dedicated by the applicant, and a set of updated site plans which were revised to address the comments in Mr. DeGangi's updated letter. Ms. Castro, any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period for this application but not yet posted to the city's website, which we need to acknowledge for the record?
No.
Thank you. Okay, Attorney Thomas, I see you're present, and if you could please review the new material for each application.
Yes, Attorney Dominic Thomas, Conan Thomas, 315 Main Street, Dover, Connecticut, representing the applicant. For the record, I believe I also uploaded the responses of Jason Edwards to Mr. DeGangi's report and Mr. Rimmels's report.
I don't recall seeing that. I was looking today.
What I
No, we talked about it. I didn't check.
I uploaded them to 2507. These were the same reports, but with and again, if they aren't on there, it's my fault because I have them labeled in my thing. It's 2507 JEA Town Engineer Report. If not, I can upload them. They're just responses. But what I'd like to begin with the major new things, a request was made by Commissioner Cristiano to identify in color the open space, the development, how the parcels interacted together in a more easily readable map in color. After a few iterations, we came up with one that was filed and copies presented to you. We'll, go over that in a minute, and then.
Are you bringing that up at this time?
I can bring it up. Let me just screen share. So the color site plan, there it is. It will pop up on the screen. So, and before I get to the details of it, just we submitted this in both the zone map change and in the special exception applications. Is related to both, and it clearly shows the interaction of or the relationship of the development to the proposed open space, to the existing Shelton open space, and the engineer included in it the roads which are undeveloped roads, which are town roads. I mean, it's not necessarily Shelton open space. Those other spurs are
Those are
town
paper
property
roads?
that's not developed, those are paper roads. Paper roads, which theoretically could be used for access to the open space from that side. But anyway, so that's, hopefully this will be able to give you a much better picture of the situation.
And Attorney Thomas, can I just ask on the color map, we've got the dotted lines that go across the roadway that says Constitution Boulevard and continues across the green. Is that the course? That's not the water. Where's the brook?
The brook, let me just blow this up. Hold on a second. Let me just stop a little. The brook brook
Yes, it does.
is right here. The brook is this area coming down. You see the dotted lines? The brook
Yeah.
is this area coming down, and then it goes underneath Constitution.
That's what I was referring to, all that.
Right.
That's the course of the brook.
That's the course.
And then
Yes.
where it crosses from the green into the orangey area, does it disappear underground or
No, I
head wall or something? or other?
believe, from my memory, it's an open brook through that area. And then I'm saying this from memory, you just had an application before you
Mhm.
for, I think, the end of Way Bosset,
Uh-huh.
or a couple of houses
Mhm.
subdivided. I believe right across from that property is the area considered the headwaters
Okay.
of the thing. So it comes down through, I don't have the rest of Way Bosset. It comes down, I think, through Way Bosset into the orange, whatever you want to call it, orange area.
Mhm.
And then it comes through the open space, showing open space into the proposed open space, and then eventually crosses under. As a matter of fact, I think there's a prior exhibit which shows the what it's called, the Ivy Brook Greenway,
Mhm.
which identifies that, and that's a prior exhibit. It may have been even presented by Mr. Harbinson.
And none of the property that's in blue is within that brook area. It's
No,
all.
not within the brook area. There are, the applicant has gone to wetlands. There's small areas of upland review area,
Mhm.
which will be disturbed, very minor disturbance, that's it.
Mhm.
And you can see the upland review area line. You see my cursor? This is the upland review area line
Mhm.
to the brook, so there's a little disturbance. That's why they're before wetlands. That will be not disturbance to the brook, it's the upland review area.
Mhm.
And that's where the road goes through, and I think there's a detention facility somewhere in there. Also,
That's the gray, the retainer there. So
Rectangle at
gr-
the end of a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that's also potential.
that's detention. I
Okay.
think there is also some detention, small detention down by Constitution Boulevard. Underground detention.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and that's it, and then they showed on here where where the buffer, he also put on there where the planting buffer would be. Then, and I'm gonna let, I think it's Ian from Edwards Associates go over the plans. There was a set of plans. I do believe there was at least one meeting with your P and Z engineer to review the issues of the sewer connection. And I guess I will ask Ms. Castro, no, I will ask Ms. Castro if, did I upload those two things?
I did not see them in 25 seconds.
I will upload them. It's my fault. Probably do. I didn't really
I know
upload
we
them.
talked about it.
Right, these were just responses on paper to the comments of the engineer, and I know there was a meeting. So at that point,
And the sender, the person that created those documents, that responsible who again?
Jason Edwards.
Jason Edwards, okay.
Jason Edwards did the responses.
Mhm.
However, Ian, not sure his last name, sorry, Ian from his office is going to explain the site plans revisions that were done to address some of the site plan concerns from the last time, but also the sewer responses in the engineering. the responses to the sewer comments in both engineers' comments. So with that, I would turn it over to Ian.
Yes.
Okay. Ian Eller. And he's got his hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can identify yourself for the record.
Hi, this is Ian Eller. I am an engineer with J. Edwards and Associates. Sorry about that. I was waiting to be called upon. I didn't realize I could just unmute. If I may,
Just do me a favor and spell your last name so that the stenographer has it correctly.
Eller, E-L-L-E-R.
Okay.
And do you want a screen share?
Yes, because then I can move around to what I want to show.
Okay.
Can you all see my site plan in front of you?
Yeah, what sheet are you on?
S 2.1.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that, yes, that grade area at the end of the northern cul-de-sac is in fact a detention area, since that came up. We did receive comments, two sets of comments. The first was from your planning office, and the second was from the engineer. We addressed those comments and we did send back that, but to give a general overview, one of the concerns was the way that we laid out the sewer, and as you can see, I've moved to S 2.2, and S 2.3 will also be involved here. Essentially, there was a question of the steepness of the angle, as it were, where the sewer splits. And so what we did is we added an extra manhole, and we made it a more 90-degree turn. And so in addition, we removed the grinder pumps that were of a concern on units 1 and 2. We lowered the inverts so that we could get all of that water by gravity, or all that soil water by gravity, down into the manholes and then run up to where they meet here at the end in the existing manhole that's up there on kind of in Waybosset/Dogwood area. So we did address those. I can answer detailed questions if you have them. In addition, there were some other comments, most of which were addressed. There was some typos and that sort of thing, and we solved that. So like I said, I can answer specific questions if you like, but that primary concern of reducing that angle so that the water flowed correctly is solved, as well as removing those grinder pumps. And I know that those were of concern.
Okay, so Mr. Eller, on the May 8th revised letter, the 4th bullet point has A through E, and that's what you were just reviewing.
Correct.
All those points have been fixed as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, let me just check all of my list of things that I have here. Right, the correct, that A through E was primarily about the concerns regarding elevations and having to pump material and coverage. And so you could see on the design plans that we dropped that sewer elevation significantly so that we could get the water to flow in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else?
Like I said, I can answer specific questions, but as far as that goes, that is all set.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, are all of the units having sewer basements?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
Are all
A
of
little
the,
closer. Okay.
It's next to you over there.
Oh, that microphone you could use. That's it.
Or Franny's?
Yeah.
at this point, I know at the last meeting, it said that the sewers weren't going in the basement, but are they now going in the basement to change the grades?
As I understand, the concern on that one, unit 1 was a different style unit than the others, and that has been resolved. I think it's now if I understand it correctly, that unit is now a garage under, and so that we could get the coverage as we needed it for the actual sewer line.
AJ Grasso from Prestige Builders at 14 Red Tail Court here in Shelton. In regards to answer your question, maybe what they were asking, I think, is were we going to have all of our sewer lines be able to go underneath the basement slab?
No,
That's not what you're asking?
no, the issue is originally the answer to the question was that it would go out but not serve the basements. But now it looks like they'll go down deep enough and go out at the floor of the basement, so the basement will be sewered.
Is that correct? We have the ability to be, we don't necessarily have to be under the slab, but we want to be deep into the basement.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Want clarification.
Does that allow you to put an additional bathroom on
In
that
the
level?
basement?
On some of the units, you'd be able to put additional bathrooms, but not necessarily on all.
All
I
right.
mean, you could put them, but they,
Mhm,
You'd have to elevate the area.
mhm.
yes.
All right, Mr. Eller, what else do you have for us?
I have answers to questions you may have. Like I said, we did address the comments that we got, both the 2 letters from 4/23 as well as the revised letter from May 8th. I don't know if you want me to go through those answers or if you already have them.
Well, Mr. DeGangi will be looking at everything that you've submitted on the revised plan dated May 18th.
Correct.
Yeah, and he'll-
I didn't have time today to do that.
Right. Yeah, so you'll get some feedback on that.
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen and give it back to the attorney there, or?
Do you have something on here that?
No, there's nothing on there. Yeah, you can stop sharing. I do want to point out that obviously these changes in the plans were correcting typos and everything like that, and we're simply addressing the sewer. Keeping in mind that in addition to this and in addition to making these changes, at the time of once the approval goes through, if it does go through, the applicant has to go to the WPCA for the sewer connection application, which will then be reviewed by Fuss and O'Neill. Nothing against WPCA, that's their procedure.
Right.
Up there, I'm assuming that's what they're gonna follow. So there could be comments that would result in changes to this specific thing. But right now, we're addressing the comments of Mr. DeGangi. So that's it. And again, we believe we addressed all that, especially as we're focusing on 2507. I do want to just reiterate 2 things about the other 2 applications. And one is to just briefly remind you that on 2506, which I believe is the text change application, I showed you an exhibit that as to why the 75-foot didn't work on a parcel of this size in the R3 zone. And we showed you that is why some flexibility was needed. And we tried to address the comments of the commissioners in the last set of applications that were denied, and then we went forward. And there also was the correction of that inconsistency of the building separation in a condominium area. There was an inconsistency between the 2 regs. So 2 of the regulations, so we addressed that with respect to it. And obviously, none of it can be accomplished if the zone change isn't done. So I think what we've presented to you is the best development of this site, given the fact of what could happen to the site if it were developed under current zoning. And I think this case points out clearly the benefit of having a viable DRD regulation that allows it in the R3 zone, because it allowed the buildings to be clustered, and in this case, allowed a very valuable open space and environmental area to now be connected farther and extended farther through the greenway. And it couldn't be accomplished without minor tweaks in the BRG regulation, which is the text change application. And of course, it needs to have the zone map change. The end result is a cluster development that generates what it's supposed to generate, which is putting the homes together, actually preserving more land, but not just preserving land willy-nilly, preserving land that actually connects up to open space. And in addition, and I do want to point out, and I was going to before, in addition, in the color, because this question did come up, and I want to I did want to point out that the lower level that's labeled open space there is actually, when you look at it in total, it's open space being dedicated to the town, but it actually expands the Constitution Boulevard right away at that point in that location. So, and I think it's an important three-part ability to develop housing in the area and still consider the open space and the impact. I realize that the people in the neighborhood have registered some of their objections to it. And many of the objections are, as often happens, can it remain the way it is? The only way it can remain the way it is were the city to step in and buy the whole thing. And that is not likely to happen. So this is a proposal that I think, even though a portion is going to be developed, there is a portion that's going to be preserved, a substantial portion, a meaningful portion. And I hope the commission will consider all of that, addresses the three changes. And I'm certainly here to answer any questions on both the open space, the changes, and also any questions on the zone text change and the zone. Now. Thank you.
Okay. So nothing else?
No.
Let me just ask, are there any commissioners here in the auditorium and those participating remotely that have questions for the applicant?
I do. I think I had asked this last time about what would happen if something happened to you or your financing and everything fell apart. And you said there would be a way to convey the open space as a contingent on the approval, or some way to protect this. If we approve this, that this would not somehow revert to just R3 zoning, all these.
No.
And
Here's and I'll go through the WPS, the worst possible situation.
Yeah.
Okay?
that's
So
what I'm asking.
you approve all three. The development of the property under the DRD is conditional upon the open space.
I understand
Right.
that.
So that's
But-
done with respect to the open space. When the approval is done, the first step is again, if you're talking about some ridiculous situation where the day after the approval, AJ decides to go to Bimini and forget about this, that's not what we're talking about. So the day after the approval, the special exception application has to be recorded on the land records. That's the requirement of the law. So in the normal approval process, the special exception application is recorded at the same time the conveyance, the open space conveyances are done. And you can certainly make that as clear as a bell, but that would be the normal procedure. I'm sure Ms. Castro would ensure that's done. So at that point, the normal procedure is I communicate with Attorney Eudocia. I have to produce a title search of the property and the open space properties, which would be identified in a map that will have to be recorded. There will have to be a Mylar of all of this. And that Mylar is recorded and that'll form the basis, however you want to, they want to label it, open space area number 1, open space area number 2, and that gets deeded to the town. So at that point, really soon after your approval, what you have left is the developable piece. And the developable piece is developable by anybody else. They can come in, because there's a special exception recorded, and put in the 20+ homes.
In
But
this-
just in the
By
blue,
this, yeah,
blue.
this, but this plan,
yeah.
yeah.
They can do that plan, or they can come back to you and do a lesser plan. Whatever else they.
That's within that, within this.
Within the blue.
Within the blue.
Within the blue,
Right.
right, within the
that
blue.
space.
They're stuck to within the blue.
Yeah.
Because the normal procedure is that the open space comes with the approval, as a condition of the approval. So the approval is ineffective under statute until you record the special exception on the land.
So in essence, the city would own the green.
And simultaneously therewith, we would
Mhm.
be deeding the open space.
Okay.
I mean, yes, somebody could do something on the blue. They have to
Yeah,
come back to
no.
you. They'd
Yeah,
have to come back
no,
to
no,
you.
yeah, that's
Just on the
clear
blue.
on that, yeah. That. Following you?
Hmm.
Yeah. So just concerned that it could just go back to the whole piece.
Not the whole piece, no.
Yeah.
That will be within the approval process, that will be conveyed to the city as open space.
Yeah.
Now, keeping in mind, the city could say, don't convey it to us, convey it to a land trust. I doubt if they'll do that in this situation here. The city has the right to either accept it in fee or have it go to a land trust or some other land, environmental, I'm sorry, open space type of nonprofit that would have to hold it permanently. In this case, given the fact that the abutting open space is city open space, I'm assuming that's what it would be. And I would have to communicate with Attorney Theodosia and provide for him a title.
That would
Can I
be,
just interject here? I overheard what you were saying. I would just say to the commission, because the circumstances come up in the past, let the Board of Aldermen and or the mayor decide where that property is going to go.
Mhm.
Because we've had issues in the past with
Mhm.
regard to.
Yep. Okay.
before we act.
No, you can act on it, but let them decide if it's going to X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Not X, Y, or Z, anybody, Joe.
Right,
Either
but-
the town or land trust or whomever,
Yeah.
whoever they choose, yes.
Can we, though, designate that it couldn't be used for some other kind of development? Like parks or, something the city might have interest in?
That's really a question for, I mean, you can,
It's up to the city.
yeah, that's up to, you could suggest it.
I would just be more concerned if if the property is handed over to a land trust, that it be put in perpetuity, because I've seen land trust trade properties. So I would be very cautious of that. But again, that's the Board of Aldermen's decision.
Right, I don't think this commission should be deciding how the city uses. the property.
No, absolutely.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, then somebody can pass over the speaker sheet, please. We'll move into speaker portion. I'll first ask if there are any public officials here in the city of Shelton present in the auditorium that wish to speak, and you haven't signed the sheet, please do so. And I don't see any movement on that. Let me just ask if there's any public officials who are participating either via Zoom or through a phone link. Please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9.
There.
Oh, yeah.
No, what's
Take
going on.
two.
They're very short. That's close. Dominic doesn't have cooties. No. So, Ms. Castro, anybody indicating on Zoom or through the phone link that they want to you recognize if they're a public official? No, okay. All right, so starting off, first person signed up, Christy. Come on up and have a seat. Might want to pull in.
Is this for new information or?
Yeah, what they have uploaded is the new colored map.
The speakers, is this for new information other than what
The
was?
commenting is limited to this. It's not going through the whole thing.
So everyone understands that.
Yeah, I listed in my comments at the beginning what the additional items were that had been uploaded to site plan in color was for 2505 and 2507. There were some pieces of correspondence from the public for 2506. Mr. DeGangi's modified letter on May 8th was also for 2507. And updated site plans were uploaded. Those are items. Okay. Just identify yourself for the record as usual.
My name is Christine Pornabayo. I reside at 55 Sunset Drive, and I actually am one of the properties that abuts Mr. Thomas's client's property. So first off, good evening, Ms. Harder and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to be reading because it took me a little while to put this together, and we'll be within that 5-minute. I promise. Okay, so here we are again. What is it in the hope that my fellow Quorum Gardens neighbors and I would change our response from the last couple of times? Again, we have been going through this hamster wheel, going back and forth with Mr. Thomas's client and Mr. Grasso. First, approximately 30 houses, then 23 houses, now 20. No buffers to the surrounding properties to wait. How about from 10 to 20 feet? But let's not rezone, but build 7 houses without text amendment, keeping it at 75 foot from the property lines. No rezone or DRD. You see where I'm going with this? Pure convolution, chaos, and a waste of everyone's time and efforts, not only from my fellow neighbors, my family, but your valued time. By Mr. Thomas speaking in circles on behalf of his client, changing the plans at the 11th hour, too many maps, outdated conservation approval from 2017, which was 8 years ago. The landscape has changed since. And during the first time a few years back, Mr. Thomas's client thought it was a given a few years ago with no set plan just because he hopped on the wagon of, hey, if developments are approved all around, why can't I? This mentality alone would have saved you and the surrounding neighbors of the Ivy Brook waterways years of frustration, exhausting efforts with 2 petitions, numerous opposition letters, numerous public hearings by denying outright all applications in question and going forward. How many chances are you giving these proposals?
Christina, I have to caution you, have to speak to the merits of the application, okay?
Yes. Okay. But enough's enough. How many times do we have to say no? We don't really want it. We don't really need it. We understand that Mr. Thomas's client has purchased the property. However, just build what is allotted current zoning regulations with the 75-foot buffer from the surrounding properties and move on. No more changes to benefit just one person. This is pure greed, a money grab for all parties involved, not beneficial for the city of Shelton. By accepting all 3 applications, this will shed light on more negatives than positives, such as the following: increased traffic. Has there been a latest study report on the traffic? It literally takes me 3 minutes from my house to go to work on Waterview to my parking lot at Hubble. Now it takes me 10 minutes because of the increased traffic. Increased lighting pollution with all the clearing and all the housing, potential housing. Increased crime. These little trees will not protect the surrounding properties. Total extinction of the wildlife habitat. Would you like a coyote stalking your pets, children, and you while you're in your own yard because there had nowhere else to go? I think not. And I personally have experienced that. When was the last time a wildlife study has been actually performed? Removing the noise barrier between Quorum Gardens and Constitution Boulevard and Route 8. Structural damage on the surrounding water wells, foundations, windows, etc. with the blasting. This will cost Mr. Thomas's client more money than it's worth, and because we will send him the bill. Saying that this is not, I can go on and on, but I have 5 minutes to state my case. But once again, therefore, I implore all of you, please deny all 3 applications. This has been ongoing for a couple of years now. Please hear our voices. We are saying no. Just build the houses that you're allowed on, no rezone, no DRD, and no text amendment. Please work with what you have and we can move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
All right, next is Matt Fornabayo.
I almost walked right into that darn thing. Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Matt Fornabayo, also 55 Sunset Drive. I want to start by saying I'm not here protesting these changes just to be a terrible person and just saying, oh, I hope this other person doesn't get their way because I'm mean. I'm not one of those people who says I don't want anything to happen. I'm just here speaking to you because I feel this is all a bad idea that has multiple cons, very few pros. The city of Shelton and this board defined the DRD concept in order to allow cluster development while facilitating the creation of much needed open space, as Attorney Thomas did mention. The land in question, I feel, does not really qualify in such a way. We're talking about where the houses are going. We saw the colorful map, which that was requested. Thank you for putting that together. That's wonderful. But it does show all the open space. It's a totally different plot of land that happens to have a tiny little fistula connecting them. I don't see how the cluster housing DRD creates open space. It's just not using another plot of land. The applicant has requested in a previous text amendment previously to have a 0-foot setback, absolutely no setback for structures abutting my property, with the argument that my property has a setback, so they shouldn't need one. So not only is that, in my opinion, kind of an asinine argument, it's indicative of, we're not being taken seriously. The new amendment concedes a small setback, but it's been stated by the applicant's attorney that with the last DRD that was built, they ignored the setbacks anyway. So what promises do I have as an abutting landowner that if you say, okay, yeah, 20 feet, that's fine, but then once building starts, it's actually 10 feet or no feet or something different. It was flat out said that they ignored it. We're going to give them an inch. They're going to take a few miles. That's all I'm saying there.
Where's your house on here?
I open now.
55 cents.
We're right here.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we're that plot. Sorry. All right, moving on, Constitution Boulevard. We talked about creating the development with one access point on Constitution Boulevard, exiting on an already busy road. In the middle of a blind curve on which cars seem to regularly attempt land speed records, on which we're already getting 100-unit clock tower apartment complex, plus 152-unit complex down the road, 40 condominiums, plus, as well as plans to make Constitution Boulevard South a cut through to the north side of the city. The people that are going to buy these houses that are being proposed are going to have a hell of a time getting out of there. It's already a hell of a time getting out of Plaskin, which is really the only access onto Constitution from the existing properties over there. You're going to see accidents. You're going to see traffic violations. You're going to see some horrible stuff. The knuckleheads in their muscle cars aren't going away. And we're adding 300 plus residents to an already outdated piece of infrastructure. I can tell you why no one's done a traffic study yet, because they're going to tell everybody no, that this is not going to work. I'm saying no to this zone change. I'm saying no to this text amendment, the project in general. I'm asking you all to say no. I'm asking. Nobody wants this. The area is already being overdeveloped. And frankly, the proposal really benefits no one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. Next is Becky Douglas.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Feel like I'm part of a family already. I'm Becky Douglas. I live at 56 Woonsocket Avenue here in Shelton. And this board already knows how I and everyone else feels about this project.
It's my hope that we can all come to some kind of a compromise where he gets to build a few homes and we get to keep the feeling that we've always had with the area, with the woods and everything. I don't know why he calls it Woods Way, because there won't be any more woods. I just am opposed to all three of these applications. I know he has a right to build, but that area is, it's not meant for that many homes. So, like I said, you guys already know how everybody feels, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you so much. Next is Joy DeMarchis.
Hello, Joy DeMarchis, 41 Second Avenue, also representing 1 to 12 DeMarchis Drive. So I was raised by parents who are developers. So my stance is a little different than some of my neighbors. I'm not against development. Never have been, never will be. He has a right to build on his land. With the same token, R1 and R2 is what he bought it at. Right? That's what he bought it at. He knew what he was getting. My father did. There were no zone changes for us. So then the question I beg is this: is R3 the requirement to go through Constitution? Because if that's the case, then we have to make modifications. I do not want to see development go through our small roads. As I've reiterated in the past, we have a lot of children. That's a good thing. I don't know how many youth are not on their phones. And I see our kids playing in our small streets. And they're small. So I'm sitting here asking and begging a question. Is R3 the requirement to go through Constitution? And if that is the case, then what is the stance of this P&Z? Is this R3 change required for traffic to go through Constitution? And if that is, then we have to talk to the committee, talk to the community and see how to make that work. But if it's not, and he can still go through Constitution and stay with the R1, R2, then I suggest that is the recommendation, because he bought it knowing what it was. I think my father and my parents would have loved to buy something and be able to triple or double the amount of development they could do. It's more money in the pocket, and I'm not even against that one either. As an entrepreneur, what I'm saying is this: if he bought it at R1, R2, how many houses does that legally give him? Is that 7, 6? Give me a number. I want that number. And if that number is 16, then tell me what that is. And then tell me how this 20 becomes R3. Do you have the answers for me today?
You present your comments, and it's the
okay.
applicant that responds.
So Dominic, that's my question, right? For the next meeting, I want those answers, because I'll be bringing a whole community here again, like these last 2 times. And I would like those answers prior to the next meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, Margaret Paulson.
Hey, Margaret Paulson, 64 Sunset Drive. This is all I know. In 1987, the sewer line was never completed. So it's not there. They never hooked it up. And I'm against the zone change because if he clear cut something like Bridgeford Avenue, we'd have a mess. And 3, I would like to know exactly how many houses he can build on the existing acreage and This has not gone before the inland wetlands yet because their meeting was canceled Monday. And for protocol, he has to go through inland wetlands first before he gets here. Yep, because he can't build on Constitution. He can't put a road there because it's inland wetlands. And he has to prove that for inland wetlands, not his own person like Bridgeford Avenue. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Next one is it David or Daniel? Olson. David, come on up. That's why you didn't jump up right away.
Well, I'm David Paulson, 64 Sunset Drive. I've said this in previous meetings before, and I'm opposed to the density and the amount of buildings that are going in. And I would hope that you would consider allowing them to build for the way it is presently zoned. I think this is going to become, instead of a neighborhood, it's going to become like an association or almost like a condominium community with all these houses. And I think that they should respect the setbacks, which I would like to see it at the 75 feet. And the other question is, if you look at the Ivy Brook itself, is the sanctity of that, is there like a thing where you can't build within certain footage of the actual brook itself, or that is not even a consideration?
Mhm.
And is there any plan in the roads or anything to any way interrupt the brook or encroach on whatever is that? Do they call it the greenway, the brook? I don't even know what it's referred to as. So that's it. In closing, I would like to say, I would hope that you did not change the zoning and the amendments, and let him build whatever he wants to build the way it is zoned presently.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. If there's anybody who is participating remotely via Zoom or through a phone link that would like to comment, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 to be recognized. Okay, Ms. Castro, is there anyone there?
No.
No. Okay. Sure, give you a minute. Just restate your name for the record again.
Becky Douglas, 56 Woonsocket Avenue. I did have a question. Mr. Paulson reminded me, at the last meeting, it was stated that from what I understand, I'm not sure, so Attorney Thomas can straighten me out on this, that this development, the people will own the houses, but they don't own the property, kind of like a condo thing. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
He will address that all.
Oh,
when
okay.
he's-
So if I am understanding that correctly, something was also mentioned about putting decks on some of these houses.
Mhm.
Now, if there's, as far as I know, if someone's gonna come and take care of this property, mow the grass, take care of the vegetation and stuff like that, if these decks are on the back of the house, I've never known anyone that would go to the backyard of a property to like mow a lawn or take care of any shrubbery that's back there. So are these decks gonna come right up against property lines, or, you know, if decks are put onto these homes?
Mhm. Okay,
That's my question.
okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, last call for anybody from the public participating by Zoom or through a phone. All right, hearing none, Attorney Thomas, you want to comment?
Which as I always usually like to do, which is.
You have a
start-
microphone, you need a microphone.
As I always like to do, I try to start at the end, just let me. With respect to the issue of the decks, I know there was some discussion about whether or not, there's no firm decision made on the decks, but the decks need to be outside. First of all, the decks are
That's
part of the structure, so the decks need to be outside the 20 feet.
That's 20. I think that's 8.1.
And you can see the pictures here that they are outside the 20 feet in the grading plan, where they're up against the only area where there are houses, you know what I mean? That's the only area where there are houses on the other
But the
side.
question is the maintenance going to include?
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay,
Okay, so the intent right now is, and the approval would be for condominium ownership, common ownership. In common ownership, a lot of that results, how it's maintained is in the declaration or in the bylaws. In the normal situation here, people would be entitled to maintain around their property, immediately around their property, and the rest of the landscaping, including the backyard and everything else, would be mowed by the association's contractors who would do the landscaping on the property. So the condominium owner owns their unit and then their respective share of the common areas, which the area. That's the way that they're set up. So the common areas, you own a unit and then you own the share of the common area.
and that common area starts how far off of the deck?
The common area is everywhere outside of the
Structure.
And interestingly enough, if I have a condominium question and I need to get an answer, I usually call the person sitting at the end of the table and ask him those type of questions, because I do not do condominiums.
Decks are limited common element.
That-
Which means that
That was
the
it.
owner takes responsibility for the work on it.
Mhm.
It's owned by you, or it's owned by the association.
And is it immediately outside the area of the deck? That's the common area?
If
You know, there was a
have-
question about who's gonna maintain the areas.
The unit owner maintains the deck.
Yeah,
And then based on the declaration, either there's an area of grass that the unit owner has, or the association takes care of
okay, so it could be included that 10 feet outside the deck is still the condo owner's responsibility?
it. If that's the footprint of the unit.
Yeah, okay.
The unit can be just the air inside the unit. It could be the unit on the grass
Hmm.
and the patch of grass. Or it could be in combination.
Okay. All right, so it depends on the footprint.
So that, I think, answers that question. There was a question.
Oops, sorry.
There
Go
was a
ahead.
question about the road encroaching on the brook. The road does not encroach on the brook. There was a question about wetlands application. The requirement on wetlands is that the application be filed previous to or simultaneously with this special exception application. And that was accomplished in this case. The question was asked about Ivy Brook.
Wetlands application was filed and
Well,
it has not been heard yet?
it's. What's
What's the status of it?
The reason they didn't have a quorum for the last meeting.
So it was on the
It
agenda,
was
so
on
it's
the
gonna be
agenda.
on an upcoming,
Correct.
okay, so it's
It's been
in progress.
accepted.
Right.
It had been accepted already,
Mhm.
with a quorum, and there was no quorum for the last meeting.
Okay,
So with respect to that application, which is 2407, the special exception application, the commission, according to the statute, should wait until it makes a decision to receive a report, is the way the statute is worded, from the Wetlands Commission with respect to that one only of the three. The other two are unrelated to wetlands. The wetlands was taken with respect to sort of combining the questions on open space, what can you build, and buffer. So if you're building in accordance with the subdivision regulations, the answer has to begin with this statement. That when a commission, and I'm doing a brief, so I'm very familiar with this right now, and I'm putting this same thing in. when a commission zones a piece of property, it has made a determination that the infrastructure surrounding that property is sufficient to support the zone when you zone it for a permitted use. It is currently zoned R2 on a good portion. There's a small portion zoned R3, and there's a portion zoned R1. I think we've shown you, and there was an exhibit showing you what R3 would look like if you zoned it. If you built properties in accordance with the existing zoning, it would probably be around 14 or 16 units. Now, the question was asked, and I know it's difficult, what about open space? Well, there's a requirement of 10% open space, but nobody wants 10% open space, which isn't a lot, unless it's connectability. You can also do a fee in lieu of. Nobody is going to be building on Ivy Brook. That's ridiculous. However, in the upland review area along Ivy Brook, houses, if you were doing it under normal zoning, houses could be constructed in there as long as you're able to show to wetlands that the disturbance in that upland review area does not have an adverse impact upon the wetlands. It's a very expert generated procedure. Okay. So you might have less houses. You would have substantially, as we presented to you, you would have substantially more land disturbance. And when you're doing R1, R2, or R3, nowhere in your regulation does the word buffer appear. The person gets it. If they want to have subject to wetlands, subject to upland review area. So all those homes that were completely out of it in the development, if they wanted to build a wiffle ball field for their 3 sons, they could cut down every tree and go right to the property line. There's no prohibition. And they wouldn't be in violation of anything under regular zoning. So you could have less homes and substantially more disturbance. So, and so tying that up, there was a comment about buffers in the 75-foot buffer. The 75-foot buffer that was in the original regulation, and the reason we introduced the 2017 minutes was that the 2017 minutes, basically from the Conservation Commission, said, be careful with that because you should be deciding it on a case-by-case basis. The previous approval was to let you do it on a case-by-case basis. And yet the feeling was we should have something in there. So we came back with the something in there, okay? The something in there gives the commission the ability to make a decision on a case-by-case basis as to what the buffer should be. So for example, in an area where there are homes, there is the 20-foot buffer and the homes are a little farther away. On the other side, there is still the 20-foot buffer. In this property, it's done to maximize the amount of open space that is going to the town. That's because we're designing it here. In the regulation change, you have to be able to trust yourselves to be able to look at a site and make a correct decision. The understanding is we're talking about buffering, we're talking about doing a row of plantings, none of that. And this is what I think people have a hard time understanding. None of that is in R1, R2, R3, R4, R5 zone. There's no such thing. You could ask a developer, but there's no requirement. On the other hand, under the DRD, with a special exception application, you have the right to demand it as a condition of the approval. That is a big difference from what regular zoning is. So in fact, the reflection does have a row of buffering trees, it has required open space, and it has other benefits. I mean, I just don't know of a planner who would tell you in this type of a situation, you're better off letting more be cleared than trying to preserve open space and cluster your housing. light, I mean, the issue of, there was issues raised of light pollution, wildlife habitat, blasting. Again, it would take place in the normal zoning. That same stuff would take place because you would be clearing the entire property. You may have less homes, but you would have more clearing. And you would have less control. Then the question that was asked by Ms. DeMarchis. The answer to the question, and I don't want to misstatement in this. The answer is yes, to prevent access through the other streets, through
Coram
Gardens, through that area there. This has to be changed. Why? Because then it could go it could go to R3 and then become a DRD. Remember, there's only 3 zones that allow a DRD. There's R1, R1A, and R3. So that's why the R2 portion has to be changed over to R3. Okay.
Say that one more time.
That's why the R3, the R2 portion, that's the blue. Well, a portion of the blue is R3. Portion of the blue is a small portion of it. But the R2 portion has to be changed to R3. And the portion that gets of R1 in the front has to be changed to R3. The other 2 portions of R1 are going to become open space.
Right,
So
I
they're not
understand that,
changed.
but again, how does that is preventing from any access to go through Coram Gardens right now and in the
Because
future?
what you approve, what's before you under the DRD prohibits it. And
whereas if this was
so if it's a regular subdivision, they could have an access off of Constitution and access off of Dogwood. They could have an access. We've investigated it. There's an access off of Dogwood. The other accesses off of Woonsocket or Cranston, those would probably have some topographical challenges. But the most logical one would be to have it off of, I think, down to Sunset and then over
Westminster.
What's that? Not Dogwood.
What do you got here?
Yeah, Dogwood Lane. I'm sorry. Yes, Dogwood Lane and where it connects. That should be, we won't have that. Now, again, there's no guarantee that anybody developing in accordance with zoning, what they would choose to do. You know what I mean? The question for, especially in a regular zoning would be, how do we max out our number of units under the zoning? So they've got to carefully look at how they put the road in. And one of the initial reasoning under why it was investigated coming the other way was a suggestion by staff way back when, that staff meaning Tony Panico, Alex, that maybe we should create a more consistent flow of Coram Gardens roads in and out of the property. And that way you could get more zoning, that way. And then it got from there into why don't we do a DRD? And that's how it got to that. So that is this commission would prevent it by approving the DRD and having it be developed. Okay. Now, I want to be clear because this is what I wonder. If you took Commissioner Ratto's WPS question, and this wasn't developed, and I want to be honest, I want to be clear, and it wasn't developed at all. There's still the open space and everything like that. And nobody decided to go forward with the development. Theoretically, it's possible for someone to come in and say, well, I want to enter the other one. However, you already have a special exception approval on the property. It's already been changed. They very well would have to come in with an application that would not be a matter of right. So they might have difficulty. I didn't want to think anything was impossible, but the chances of it not being done this not being developed, it's, of it being approved and being developed and not being developed by AJ and the property owner is the same chance I have of being 6-1 next week. Okay, so. Okay, yeah.
If we, on Constitution Boulevard, if it was developed under the current regulations, you'd probably have 3 accesses off of Constitution Boulevard instead of just one road. And you would also have, you could have multiple accesses and driveways off of the roads that are in Quorum Garden. With this, we eliminate the possibility of that ever happening.
Because you would have to have separate driveways for the R1.
When you're, that's what I'm saying. The 3 accesses would be because of the R1 zoning and your layout would be totally different.
Totally different.
Okay.
Totally. And again, I think I just mentioned that,
We've seen that proposal. We've
Mhm.
actually,
yeah,
Mr. Thomas has presented it.
we presented that. in
What
one
it
of
would
the
look like
previous
if
meetings.
it were
Yeah.
traditional zoning.
Yeah, and so, and then the other issues, again, like I said, light pollution, wildlife habitat, all of that, that is equally as impacted. Or probably even more impacted under regular zoning. So I think with that, unless somebody can think of a question that I did not, I think I tried to address all of the questions that were asked. And we would, I think we would have just the point, I don't want people to tell, but I think that we've presented enough hopefully for you to close the public hearing. Certainly go into deliberations, not tonight necessarily, but at some point in the future, you do need to wait on the, as I said, on the special exception application. You do need to wait.
Well, we do have Mr.
Report.
Ganji needs to look at the revised plans anyways.
Well, but it can be, those are related to the sewer, you know, those are related to the sewer changes. And they could certainly be conditional upon compliance with it. And again, keeping in mind that we have to go to WPCA. You know what I mean? We still have to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, any final questions for the applicant from the commission? Okay, hearing none. How does the commission want to proceed on this? Is there any motion?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on 25/05/06/7.
Okay, there's a motion to close the public hearing for the 3 applications from Commissioner Cristiano. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Motto has seconded. So on the motion to close. Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Motion to close has passed by a vote of 6-0. So this particular application will be on the agenda of an upcoming meeting for discussion by the commission. Okay. All right, and so we have one item from the executive session to call Attorney Teodoso to present a motion.
Take the people out of executive session on the record.
Yes, we did.
Hold on 1 second. Please.
Sure.
Yeah. I stopped sharing. Sorry, let me do it. You cut me off.
There we go. I have it now.
You good?
What's that?
Thank
Can I
you.
disconnect you?
Graham is hoping to leave.
Oh, no,
Very
no,
odd.
go ahead. Disconnect. Sure.
Yes, I know. Didn't make it, huh?
95% charge.
One question.
We're still in the. Anybody need a site plan?
Yeah.
Oh, this is old. Okay. Good night, Attorney Thomas. Okay. So I will recognize Attorney Titoso.
All right, if anybody from the commission doesn't understand my motion before you vote on it, please tell me and I'll clarify or answer. Move to authorize settlement of Agim Ismaili et al. V. The Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission, docket number HHD LND CV 24 61 83 33 6 S. Provided that the final plans reflect no more than 3 floors and 30 units, 8 of which shall be at 80% AMI and designated as 8-30G units having a 40-year duration noted on the Shelton land records. That the parking ratio be 2.0. That the roof height of the apartment structure be reduced by at least 5 feet. That no clearance, construction, or blasting work be performed on the site unless and until satisfactory test borings indicate there has been no migration of methane gas to any area of the site. The applicant shall pay the cost of a qualified professional to work for and advise the commission of the type and amount of drilling which needs to occur and whether the readings reflect a safe situation to allow construction and blasting. That a public hearing be set at which time the applicant shall submit an amended statement of uses and standards, initial development, conceptual plans, and a final site development plan, all reflecting the terms and conditions as earlier set forth.
Okay. Attorney Titoso has read the motion. Any questions for Attorney Titoso? Nope. Is there a motion to motion to approve your?
We're gonna
Somebody has
discuss.
to move the motion.
Is there a motion to move the motion
Do we want to move? to
for discussion? That's what the motion
I'll
is.
make that motion
Attorney
move the
Titoso, move the motion for discussion.
for discussion.
Okay. Move the motion for discussion made by Commissioner Kelly.
I'll second.
Okay, and on a roll call to move the motion for discussion, Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so any discussion on this particular item that Attorney Titoso just read? Is there any one that wants to make a motion to approve the settlement? Is that what is it?
Motion. Move my motion.
There's too much movement in this room right now.
Yeah.
Motion to move the motion presented by Attorney Titoso. Is that correct? Okay,
You're moving to a vote now.
yes. Motion to vote on the,
You need a second.
yes, I know. Okay, so is there a motion on this particular motion?
I'll make that.
All right, and Commissioner Kelly has made the motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Christian, I'll make a second.
Okay. Is everybody clear on the motion that we're doing?
Yes.
All right. All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. Before we adjourn, I just want to say that this has been a particularly difficult application that we have been dealing with for, I would say, about 3 years now. And I want everyone to understand that way back when we had a work session, the original proposal was for a 4-story, 40-unit building. And we, at the work session, which I think Commissioner Kelly, you were the other commissioner there, and the work sessions, for those that are not familiar with them, they are permitted in our regulations, and they are encouraged when someone is considering some kind of development to be proposed to the commission. At that time, we indicated that it was not a proposal that we felt was appropriate, and that particular proposal went away for a year, and it was just about a year to the date that we had another work session as requested, and the Attorney Thomas was the one that I remember saying we were going to revise the proposal to make it a 3-story building with 30 units. And that was something that he pursued and we denied. And we had specific reasons for that. We were, then it came back as an 830G, and the state of the state is that any 830G proposal that gets denied and then is appealed and then goes to a Superior Court has little or no chance of being
denied.
No, has little or no chance of being resolved in favor of the city.
Right.
Because it is the way that statute was written, is that it is not up to the person who appeals a denial to prove their case, but it's up to the city to prove why it should not go forward. And
Based only on health and
safety,
safety.
right? And there's
reasons.
very, very few arguments that the city could present that would be show us to be to have an appropriate reason for us to have gone ahead with a denial. So the chances of this, if we were to deny this particular motion this evening and another appeal went to the Superior Court, it could come back as a building being 4 stories and 40 units and not have as many affordable housing units as we have this evening. They would only have to provide 10%, which is 4 units, and what we have are 8 units. So I think
Plus the parking would be.
the parking was going to be a lesser amount. This one holds them to a bigger amount. Yes, we did discuss on more than one occasion the streets in the area as being not particularly conducive to on-street parking, and that's why they are signed for no parking. And we hope that that will not cause a lot of problems in the neighborhood. And but the remedy would be that the parking authority has to step in and perhaps post new signs that towing would take place immediately. So that's all I have to say. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to it.
Well, as you stated, I know from myself and also for you, we have gone to many seminars and for 830Gs, and they come right out and say, as you stated before, if it goes to court, we have to prove, and it's very hard to prove, and most of the cases lean the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'd just like to add that this has been a very difficult application that none of us liked from the get-go. We've fought it multiple times. We've denied it. We also know that we likely won't win it again in court. And so we have to take the best of the situation for the residents that are nearby. With the extra parking, we felt that it would provide some relief for people trying to park on the street from this development. But I would also say that our hands really are tied with this 830G law. And if those that are really opposed to it, I would say take your battle to the state, because that's where it's coming from.
Right. Great.
I'd agree with that statement very much. I think we've worked very hard to try to avoid this outcome,
Mm-hmm.
and here we are, so.
That's right. All right, well, that was the only, the final item on the agenda. So there is no other comments from the commission, I'll declare this particular evening's meeting is adjourned as of 9:04 p.m.